You know that feeling when you work all month long and at the end you wonder where the money went? You look at your closet full of clothes and realize you have nothing to wear. You look at your house filled with things and feel like something is missing. Earning more does not solve it. Buying more does not either, because the problem was never the lack of money. The problem is the lack of intention. What if I told you there is a way to spend less without feeling like you are depriving yourself of anything? That you can have more money at the end of the month simply by changing small, invisible habits. Habits so subtle that nobody notices, but that make all the difference between living financially suffocated and living with peace of mind. I am not talking about cutting coffee, canceling streaming services, or living like a hermit. I am talking about silent economy, the way the Japanese have managed money for more than 100 years. And it continues to be more effective than any modern budgeting app. I am Naomi Yamada. I lived in Japan in my youth. I studied in Kyoto and Tokyo, absorbing not only the language, but the philosophy of life. I came back to Los Angeles bringing few belongings, everything I considered essential. That is because I learned that the less you carry, the further you go. Before I continue, if you want to learn to live with more lightness, sophistication, and intention, subscribe to the channel now, activate the notification bell, and leave your like. Here, there is no fluff, only content that truly transforms the way you live. Charm Minimalista exists for women and men who want to get out of autopilot and start living with purpose. My grandmother lived with admirable health and a financial serenity that always intrigued me. I never saw her worried about money. I never heard her complain about bills. I never noticed financial stress. And look, she was not rich. She was just wise. She saved money without seeming like she was saving. She lived well without visible excesses. She had quality without needing to show off. Her house was serene, organized, beautiful, but it had nothing unnecessary. Every object had a purpose. Every expense had intention. Her secret, I discovered years later, was not in grand financial strategies. It was in small daily rituals. She did not think big. She thought small, very small. And that is the essence of Japanese silent economy. Years later, I lost everything in a global financial crisis. Everything disappeared in a matter of months during the financial crisis. It was devastating, humiliating, frightening, but it was also liberating. Because at that moment, completely broken financially and emotionally, I had no choice but to go back to basics. And the basics were what my grandmother had taught me. The first fundamental principle of Japanese economy: treat every penny as if it mattered. Because it does. Deeply. In Japan, there is a beautiful concept called mottainai. It is a complex word, difficult to translate directly. It means something like regret, sorrow, sadness over waste. It is that bad feeling you should have when you throw away food that is still good, when you buy something and never use it, when you pay for services you do not even remember you have, when you waste precious resources through carelessness or inattention. I practice kakebo religiously every Friday afternoon. It is a sacred ritual for me. I prepare my tea, sit at my walnut wood table that I bought in 2010. I open my kakebo notebook, and I review the entire week. I write down every expense that was not yet recorded: groceries, transportation, that impromptu coffee I had at the bakery after the gym, the magazine I bought at the airport coming back from a trip, the gift I gave to a friend, parking, everything. Absolutely everything. At the end of the month, I sit more calmly and look at the numbers with total attention. And always I am surprised. Because we spend much, much more than we imagine on things we do not even remember 2 days later. Invisible purchases, automatic expenses, spending on autopilot. A recent study from the University of Tokyo showed something fascinating. People who write down expenses manually on paper have up to 30% more capacity to save than people who only use automatic apps. You know why? Not because apps do not work. They work. But because the physical act of writing, of taking the pen and recording that expense with your own hand, creates an emotional connection. It creates real awareness. You process the information differently, deeper, more visceral. And awareness, true awareness, generates conscious choice. And conscious choice generates freedom, financial freedom, emotional freedom, freedom to live how you really want to live. Let me give you a practical example that will shock you. Do you get coffee every day at Starbucks before work? Let us say it is a latte and a croissant. $8. Does not seem like much, right? It is just coffee. But let us do the math. $8 per day, 5 days a week, is $40 per week. That is $160 per month. $1,920 per year. In 10 years, that is $19,200. $19,200. Enough money for a 3-week international trip, for a course that completely changes your career, for 6 entire months of emergency reserve. And I am not even calculating the compound interest that money would generate if you invested monthly. If you took those $160 per month and invested with average returns of 10% per year, in 10 years you would have more than $33,000. $33,000 because of breakfast. Now listen carefully to what I am going to say. I am not saying for you to stop drinking coffee. I am not radical. I am not extremist. I do not preach deprivation. If that breakfast coffee at Starbucks brings real joy to you, if it is a moment of genuine pleasure, if it makes a difference in your quality of life, continue. It is worth it. But if it is just automatic habit, if you do not even notice the taste, if it is only because it is on the way and takes less work than making it at home, then it is silent waste. It is money draining through your fingers without you even noticing. Silent economy is not about cutting everything. It is about consciously choosing each expense. Each one. Every day. Forever. Let me tell you a real story that deeply marked me. An acquaintance of mine, of Japanese descent, worked her whole life as a seamstress here in the United States. She earned little. Very little. She lived tight. But she was a dignified woman, hard-working, who raised 2 daughters alone after her husband abandoned the family. At 50 years old, with her daughters already raised, she looked at life and realized she needed a radical change. She saw in Japan the opportunity to build the future she never had. She went to work as an elderly caregiver. Exhausting shift of 12 hours, 6 days a week. Brutal longing for family. Loneliness in a foreign land. But she had a notebook. A simple notebook. Bought at a 100-yen store. Every day without exception, she sat for 15 minutes and wrote down every expense. Every yen that entered her bank account and every yen that left. Food, transportation, remittances to family in the United States. Everything written down, categorized. Reviewed at the end of each month. She did not have formal financial education. She did not have a business degree. She did not have a consultant. She only had the method she learned from her mother, who learned from her grandmother, who learned from Hani Motoko through the generations. Kakebo, silent economy in its purest form. When she returned to the United States 6 years later, she had saved $400,000. $400,000. Working as a caregiver. Living in Japan where the cost of living is extremely high. How? Absolute awareness of every expense. Unshakable discipline. Crystal clear purpose. She knew exactly why she was there. She knew exactly where each yen needed to go. And never, not a single time did she deviate from the plan. She bought her own house in Los Angeles. She secured a peaceful retirement. She transformed the lives of her daughters and grandchildren. All because she had the silent discipline to write down every expense for 6 years. It was not luck. It was not inheritance. It was not miraculous investment. It was method. It was intention. It was silent economy. The second principle of Japanese silent economy. Value time more than money. It seems contradictory in a video about economy? It is not. It is precisely the central point of everything, because time is the only truly scarce resource. Money comes and goes. You lose it, you earn it again. Time only goes. It never comes back. Every second that passes is a second you will never have again, and no amount of money buys more time. My mother is a perfect case of this. Enormously successful businesswoman in the fashion industry. She created a brand, opened stores, conquered the market. She worked like a condemned woman for decades. She woke up at 5 in the morning, went to sleep at midnight, weekends working, holidays working. vacations with the computer on, obsessed with growth, with numbers, with expansion, with profit. And she earned a lot indeed. She spent even more on expensive objects she barely had time to use. Designer clothes with tags in the drawer, luxury bags stored in boxes, life rushed, stressed, empty beneath the apparent abundance. In 2012, she got sick. Her body finally charged the bill for decades of chronic stress and overwork. Nothing too serious, thank heavens, but it was a giant scare. It was at that moment of fragility, lying in a hospital bed, that she finally understood. She understood for real. It does no good to have money if you do not have health to enjoy it. It does no good to work so much if you do not live, if you are not present for your children, if you do not have time for friends, if you no longer know what gives you pleasure because it has been so long since you did anything just for pleasure. Today, she is a convinced minimalist. She adopted all the practices I try to teach. She closed half the stores. She reduced the team. She simplified operations. She lives with much, much less. And for the first time in decades, she is genuinely at peace. She works 4 days a week. She has Tuesdays free. She has lunch at home calmly. She takes pottery classes. She meets friends. She reads for the pleasure of reading. She sleeps 8 hours. She travels without bringing work. She lives. She simply lives. And she is so much happier it hurts to see how much time she lost before. Silent economy is not about saving money to have more money in a bank statement. It is about saving money to buy time, to buy freedom, to work less without struggling, to choose more, to be able to say no to what does not matter and yes to what really matters. To live according to your values, not according to your debts. I could work more. I could accept all the clients who approach me. I could give 5 lectures per week. I could open a bigger office, hire a team, scale the business. I would earn more. But I chose differently. I chose to have Tuesdays and Thursdays free. I chose to have lunch at home, food that I prepare, in my time. I chose to walk every morning for 1 hour without hurry, without destination, just enjoying the path. I chose to have time to read an entire book without pauses, to drink tea looking out the window, to think, to simply be human, not productive all the time. This is silent wealth. This is true luxury. It is not in the car you drive. It is in the time you have to drive wherever you want, whenever you want, without hurry. It is not in the house you live in. It is in the time you have to be in that house, enjoying, living in each room. It is not in the money in the account. It is in the freedom that money gives you to choose how to use your time. The third Japanese principle of economy. Invest in impeccable quality instead of quantity. In Japan, it is extremely common to see people using the same pair of shoes until they literally cannot use them anymore. The leather is worn, the sole thin, the lace is frayed. Only then do they buy another pair, just one, of extremely high quality, from a brand that has existed for generations, made by hand by artisans who learned the craft from their parents. And that new pair lasts another 10-15 years. I have few pairs of shoes. And look, I give lectures, go to events, meet clients, travel. 5 pairs are sufficient because each one was chosen with extreme care. Each one has a specific purpose, clear, defined. Each one is made to last decades. Each one matches practically everything in my wardrobe. Nothing was bought on impulse. Nothing was bought on sale just because it was cheap. Nothing was bought because it was fashionable. Everything was chosen for quality, durability, versatility, and timelessness. There is a saying that my grandmother always repeated, "We do not have money to buy cheap." It seems paradoxical, but it is profoundly true. When you buy cheap, you buy twice, or 3 times, or 10. The cheap shoe lasts 6 months. The quality one lasts 15 years. In the end, you spend less buying one good one once than buying 30 cheap ones over time. Not to mention the environmental cost, the emotional cost of having a crowded closet, the mental cost of having to choose among so many bad options. Last year, the movement called quiet luxury exploded all over the world. It became a phenomenon. Brands like Loro Piana, that Italian one famous for cashmere pieces without any logo, grew 33%. Brunello Cucinelli, known for terribly expensive earthy sweaters, had a 15% increase in sales. The Row, the Olsen Sisters brand that preaches radical minimalism, has a waiting list for basic pieces. You know why? Because people are exhausted with logomania, tired of showing off, tired of buying bags with giant logos just to impress people they do not even like, tired of shouting wealth. Now they want to whisper elegance. They want quality that only those who understand notice. They want silent sophistication. They want, even without knowing it, what the Japanese have been doing for centuries. The HBO series Succession showed this perfectly to a worldwide audience. The characters are billionaires, literally owners of a media empire. But you watch the episodes and never, not once, do you see someone wearing clothes with logos. No printed Gucci, no monogrammed Louis Vuitton, no Versace with golden Medusa. Just beautiful clothes, extremely expensive, impeccable, in neutral tones, perfect tailoring, noble fabrics, wealth that whispers, never shouts. After the crisis of 2008, when I rebuilt my life from scratch, I made a radical decision. I created my streamlined wardrobe. Few pieces including everything: pants, blouses, coats, dresses, shoes, everything. I did not include only underwear and gym clothes. Does it seem impossible? Does it seem like too little? It is liberating. It is one of the best decisions I ever made. Every morning I know exactly what to wear because everything matches everything. I do not waste 30 minutes opening and closing drawers. I do not feel anxiety looking at a crowded closet without knowing what to choose. I do not have that frustrating feeling of having lots of clothes and nothing to wear. Each piece was chosen with absolute intention. Each piece is versatile, timeless, of superior quality, and makes me feel good. I save enormously on laundry because I wash less. I save on maintenance because I take better care of fewer pieces. I save on space because my closet fits in a small room. I save on mental energy because I eliminated decision fatigue. And curiously, ironically, I receive much more compliments now than when I had an overflowing closet. Why? Because quality always shows through. Always. True elegance does not need excess. The fourth fundamental principle of Japanese economy: spend less than you earn. It seems so obvious that you must be thinking it is a waste of time for me to say this. But wait, if it is so obvious, why does the overwhelming majority of people not manage to do this? Why do so many families that earn well live in overdraft? Why do self-employed professionals with very high incomes end the month without money? Because there is a phenomenon that economists call lifestyle inflation. You earn $1,000, you spend $1,000. You get a raise, you start earning $2,000, you start spending $2,000. You get a promotion, you earn $5,000, you spend $5,000. You double your income, you buy a better car. You move to a bigger apartment in a fancier neighborhood. You change restaurants. You update your entire wardrobe. You enroll your children in more expensive schools. You travel to more sophisticated destinations. And in the end, even earning 5 times more than before, there is still nothing left. Sometimes there is less, because the debts increased along with the standard. The Japanese do exactly the opposite. They deliberately keep their standard of living stable even when income grows. The difference between what they earn and what they spend does not increase proportionally to expenses. It increases proportionally to savings. When a Japanese person gets a 20% raise, they do not increase their standard of living by 20%. They increase perhaps 5%. The other 15% go to security, to freedom, to future choices, to not depending on anyone, to sleeping peacefully at night. When I came back from Japan, I brought only what I considered essential. And you know what I discovered? The essential is much less than we imagine. Not because I was poor when I returned. My parents always had means. My father is a businessman in the restaurant industry. My mother in the fashion industry. Money was never lacking in the family. But I had learned something much more valuable than money. I had learned that owning less is having more control, more mobility, more freedom, more peace. My grandmother taught me a ritual that I practice to this day. Every object that enters my house needs to pass through 3 questions. First, Do I really need this? Second, does this bring me genuine joy, or is it just a passing desire? Third, am I willing to care for, clean, maintain, and store this object for the next 10 years? If the answer to any of these questions is no or maybe, the object does not enter. Simple as that. This mentality changed completely, radically, my relationship with money. Because when you stop buying on impulse, when you stop accumulating objects without purpose, when you stop using shopping as emotional therapy, something absolutely magical happens. Money is left over, and it is not a little. It is much more than you imagine. The fifth principle of Japanese silent economy: create multiple sources of income, small, consistent, diversified, resilient. The Japanese rarely depend only on the salary from their main job. They have, of course, formal employment, but they also have small parallel projects, modest but well-thought-out investments, creative ways to generate value that do not depend on selling time for money. It does not need to be anything grand or complex. It can be selling handicrafts you produce on weekends, giving private lessons twice a week of the skill you master, freelance consulting a few days per month, investing monthly in stocks with small amounts, renting a vacant room in the house, creating digital content. The size of each source does not matter much. What matters deeply is not putting all your eggs in the same fragile basket. I work primarily as a minimalism and organization consultant. That is my main activity. But I also give lectures at companies about simplification and focus. I have my design studio where I develop projects for selected clients. I invest a fixed part of what I earn every month in stocks and real estate funds. None of this individually makes me rich overnight. That is not the objective. The objective is security. It is resilience. It is not depending desperately on any single source. And each small source, each thin stream, reduces my existential dependence on any one of them. If I lose a big client, I do not panic because I have other revenues. If the lecture market slows down, I continue living because I have consulting. If something unexpected happens that prevents me from working for a few months, my investments continue generating passive income. This is true security. This is sleeping peacefully. This is real freedom. There is a beautiful Japanese saying that goes, 7 falls, 8 rises. Life will knock you down. That is certain. The economy will enter crisis. Companies will go bankrupt. Sectors will disappear. You can get sick. You can lose your job. You can go through divorce. You can face 1,000 unforeseen events. But if you have multiple ways to get up, if you have several strings to your bow, if you diversified your sources of livelihood, no fall is fatal. None. You always have a way to rise again. Financial resilience does not come from earning a lot. It comes from having several different ways to earn. It comes from not depending on anything single. It comes from building intelligent redundancy in your life. Now let me give you the complete practical method of Kakebo that you can start applying literally today as soon as this video ends. First step, at the beginning of each month, you sit calmly and write down how much money you have available for the month. Take your total income and subtract all the absolutely mandatory fixed expenses: rent or mortgage, association fees, basic bills for electricity, water, internet, school tuition if you have children, health insurance, things like that. What is left after this subtraction is the money you have to consciously manage during the month. Second step, you define how much you want to save this month. And here it is important to be realistic, not idealistic. If you have never saved anything in your life, do not put that you are going to save 50% of your income. You will fail in the first week and give up on the method thinking it does not work. Start with 10%. Does it seem like little? In 1 year, you will have saved more than one entire salary. In 5 years, you will have a complete emergency reserve of 6 months. In 10 years, you will have a solid foundation for any project. Third step, you divide all your expenses into 4 fundamental categories. First category, survival. This includes food, transportation for work, essential hygiene and cleaning items, everything that is truly necessary to live with basic dignity. Second category, culture. Books, courses, cinema, theater, exhibitions, concerts, everything that feeds your mind and spirit. Third category, leisure. Restaurants, bars, trips, hobbies, entertainment in general, everything that brings pleasure and relaxation. Fourth category, extras. Gifts, unforeseen events, repairs, fixes, everything that does not fit into the other three. You write down each expense, absolutely each expense, in the right category, every single day, without exception, without skipping weekends, without forgetting those $5 for parking, everything. Because the power of the method is precisely in total, complete, absolute awareness of every penny that goes out. Fourth T step. At the end of the month, you answer with brutal honesty 4 sacred questions. First, how much did I have available at the beginning of the month? Second, how much did I actually manage to save? Third, how much did I spend in each of the 4 categories? Fourth and most important, how can I improve next month? This last question is the soul of the method, because it is not about guilt. It is not about punishing yourself for spending too much on leisure. It is about continuous learning, incremental improvement, constant evolution. I have used this method for years, and I can guarantee you it works. Not by magic, not by luck, but because it creates awareness. And absolute awareness is the first step for any real and lasting transformation. Let me share how I apply minimalism in daily practice. I have only 6 glass containers with bamboo lids to store dry foods in the pantry. 6. Rice, beans, pasta, oats, granola, and nuts. That is it. I do not have 15 different types of grains that sit there molding because I bought them on impulse and never use them. I do not have 20 containers with remains of forgotten things in the back. I have 6 beautiful, functional, well-cared-for containers. My entire pantry has fewer than 30 items, but only essentials. Nothing more. Salt, sugar, olive oil, vinegar, basic seasonings I really use frequently, preserves I consume regularly. I do not have that mess of 50 things bought because they were on sale, and now I do not even know what to do with them. I have the essential, and the essential is always sufficient. This principle of quality over quantity applies to absolutely everything in my life. I have few jewels stored in a walnut wood box that my grandfather made by hand. Each piece has deep meaning. Each piece is used, not stored waiting for a special occasion, because I learned that every day can and should be special. I do not need to save anything for a hypothetical future. I can use my best things today, now, at this moment. I will tell you something that happened to me a few years ago that perfectly illustrates the lack of financial awareness that most people have. A client approached me absolutely desperate. She and her husband earned well. Very well. Both self-employed professionals with 5-figure income. But they lived perpetually in overdraft. Credit card always maxed out. Paying absurd interest every month, fighting about money constantly, not understanding where everything was going. The first thing I asked was for her to write down absolutely everything for one entire month. Every purchase, every expense, no matter how small. I did not even need to analyze much. The pattern was glaring. $150 per week on food delivery. $600 per month just on prepared food delivered at home. Almost $7,200 per year. Plus the ride-sharing apps they used for absolutely everything because they were always out of time. Another $300 per month. Subscriptions for services they did not even use. $200 per month. Gym they had not attended for months but did not cancel. $150 per month. Just in these items I mentioned, they were throwing away $1,250 every month, $15,000 per year. In 5 years, $75,000. Enough money for a down payment on a house. And look, it is not that delivery or ride-sharing apps or streaming services are wrong things. The problem is when it becomes automatic, when you do not even notice anymore, when it is just because it takes less work, when it becomes an invisible expense that you do not even question. That is pure waste. It is money draining through your fingers while you complain you cannot save anything. She did not cut delivery completely. That would be unrealistic and unsustainable. But she consciously reduced it to twice a week. On the other 5 days, she started preparing simple meals at home. Nothing elaborate, nothing gourmet, just real food, made with quality ingredients in her time. She saved $350 per month just with that, $4,200 per year. She canceled the subscriptions she did not use. She canceled the gym and started walking in the park for free. She started using public transportation 3 times a week. In total, she saved more than $700 monthly. And look at what is interesting. She did not feel like she was depriving herself. She felt like she was recovering control, recovering awareness, recovering life. With the money that started being left over, she took a specialization course in her area, an extremely expensive course she always wanted to take, but thought she did not have money for. In 8 months, she finished the course. She got a promotion at work, a 30% salary increase. Today she earns much more, consciously spends less, and lives infinitely better. It was not the course that changed her life, although it helped. It was awareness. It was intention. It was silent discipline. It was Japanese economy in action transforming reality. There is a Japanese practice that I love and practice religiously. It is called harahachibu. It means eating until you are 80% satisfied, not completely full, not stuffed to the point of discomfort, just comfortably satisfied. This principle is one of the secrets of longevity in Okinawa, where people live over 100 years with health. But harahachibu does not serve only for food. It serves for everything in life: shopping, commitments, work. You do not need to always be at 100%. You do not need to squeeze every minute. You do not need to have everything. You do not need to do everything. You do not need to be everything to everyone. Living at 80% is leaving space to breathe, space for unforeseen events, space for opportunities, space for rest, space for nothing. And this empty space, this ma as the Japanese call it, is where peace lives. It is where creativity flourishes. It is where life truly happens. My dining table is made of solid walnut wood. I searched for months. I visited dozens of stores. I wanted something perfect, timeless, durable, beautiful, functional. When I found this table, I fell in love immediately, but it cost 3 times more than I had planned to spend. 3 times. I went home. I thought for weeks. I did the calculations. I imagined using this table for the next 20-30 years. I made the decision. I bought it. I paid more than rational thinking would recommend. 15 years later, it remains absolutely beautiful, solid, functional, without a serious scratch, without any structural problem, and I love it more each day. If I had bought something cheap at that time, something made of particle board with peeling varnish, I would have already replaced it 3 or 4 times, spent much more in total, generated much more waste, created much more dissatisfaction, and I probably still would not have found the perfect table. Quality is long-term economy, always, without exception, in everything. The Japanese minimalism movement is silently changing the entire world. Fumio Sasaki, a Japanese writer, lives with fewer than 200 items in total. Everything he owns in life fits into 200 objects. Does it seem extreme? Impossible? For him, it is absolute freedom. He travels anywhere with ease. He moves apartments in 1 weekend. He has nothing physically tying him to any place. He has more time because he does not need to take care of 1,000 things. He has more money because he does not spend replacing broken objects or buying new things. He lives better with much, much less. I am not saying you need to reach this extreme of 200 items. It is not a competition. It is not to see who has less. Minimalism is not about numbers. It is about intention. It is about awareness. It is about having only what adds real value to your life and eliminating everything else that only consumes you. But the central point I want you to understand deeply is this. Each thing you own is consuming you in some way. In money, you spent buying it. In space, it occupies. In maintenance, it requires. In cleaning, it demands. In mental energy to remember it exists. In decisions, it forces you to make. In weight you carry when you move. In guilt when you do not use it. Each object has a hidden cost. The less you have, the more curated what you keep is, the more you truly live. Because you free up scarce resources, time, money, mental energy, space, for what really matters in your life. True wealth is not how much you earn per month. It is how much you can consistently save without suffering. It is not how much you own in objects. It is how much you need to be genuinely happy. It is not how much you work in hours. It is how much quality free time you have to enjoy what you conquered and to be with those you love. Silent economy is an invisible revolution happening beneath the spotlights. It has no parade. It has no public manifesto. It has no trending topic on social media. It has no influencer shouting about it. It is made of small individual choices that nobody sees. Private decisions, secret disciplines, silent renunciations. That added up, accumulated, multiplied over the years, completely transform your life. You can start today, now, at this exact moment. Get any notebook. It does not need to be beautiful or special. It can be that one sitting in the drawer. Write at the top of the first page how much you have available this month. Define how much you want to save, even if it is only 5%. Start. Divide expenses into the 4 categories. And every time you spend anything for the next 30 days, write it down immediately. Every purchase, every expense, every penny. Do this for 3 complete months. Just 3. Then tell me the result. I promise you will be deeply surprised, not only with how much you can save without suffering, but mainly with how much self-knowledge this simple process brings. You will discover behavior patterns you never noticed, emotional triggers that lead to purchases, automatic expenses you accepted as inevitable but are not, financial leaks you did not even know existed, and this awareness, this intention, this silent economy and consistent action will give you something no amount of money can buy. It will give you freedom, real freedom to choose, to change, to say no, to say yes, to live exactly how you want to live, not how debts force you to live. If this video made deep sense to you, if something here resonated with your soul, if you felt it is time to change, leave your like now and share with someone who really needs to see this. It can be that friend who lives complaining that there is no money left. It can be that family member who works too much and lives stressed. It can be yourself saving to watch again when you forget these principles. The Charme Minimalista channel exists specifically to help you simplify life without losing any elegance, to find peace without giving up good taste, to have more with less. Here you learn that minimalism is not about being poor. It is about being free. It is not about deprivation. It is about intention. It is not about having less. It is about having only enough, and discovering that enough is always much more than you imagine when you are on autopilot consuming without awareness. Now tell me here in the comments, which of these principles will you start applying today? The Kakebo of writing everything down? The rule of 3 questions before buying anything? The curated wardrobe of few pieces? The Harahachibu of living at 80%? Write down here below. I want to know. I want to follow your journey. I want to celebrate your small and silent victories. Let us quickly recap what we learned today to fix it well. First principle. Treat every penny as if it mattered because it matters, and use Kakebo to create absolute awareness of every expense. Second principle. Value time more than money because time is the only truly irretrievable resource. Third principle, invest in impeccable quality instead of quantity, because buying cheap is always expensive. Fourth principle, spend less than you earn by deliberately keeping your standard of living stable even when income increases. The difference goes to security, not to consumption. Fifth principle, create multiple small and diversified sources of income to have true resilience. And the practical method, write down how much you have available for the month. Define how much you want to save. Categorize all expenses into survival, culture, leisure, and extras. Write down every expense religiously, and at the end of the month, answer the 4 sacred questions to continuously improve, month after month, until silent economy stops being effort and becomes second nature, until you do not even need to think anymore. You simply are who you are, a conscious person, intentional, free. The brutal difference between those who build solid and lasting wealth and those who live financially suffocated their entire lives is not luck. It is not inheritance. It is not winning the lottery. It is the small, invisible choices you make every day, the micro habits that nobody sees, the silent intention that operates backstage while everyone is busy trying to impress others. And all of this, absolutely everything, is within your reach right now. It does not depend on earning more. It does not depend on receiving inheritance. It does not depend on external circumstances. It depends only on you, on your decision, on your commitment, on your silent and persistent discipline. The question that remains is, will you continue living on autopilot, spending without thinking, accumulating without purpose, working without stopping to have things that do not bring happiness? Or will you finally take control of your economy, of your life, of your future, of your time, of your freedom? I made my choice in 2008, when I was broke, humiliated, lost, scared. I chose the path of silent economy, and I do not regret it for a single second, because I learned in pain and desperation that you do not need much to be happy. You do not need to impress anyone. You do not need to have the latest model of anything. You only need to have awareness, intention, and discipline with the little that is enough. And enough, when chosen with wisdom, is always abundant. My intention today in recording this video was to show you with absolute clarity that there is another possible path. A different path from what advertising, social media, and consumer society try to shove down your throat every day. A silent path. Elegant. Effective. Tested for more than 100 years. The Japanese way of managing money with deep wisdom, unshakable awareness, and sacred respect for what you have. If you made it to this point in the video, to this exact sentence, I want to thank you from my heart. Thank you. Thank you for giving me your time, your absolutely most precious resource that exists. Your time is limited. You could be doing 1,000 other things, but you chose to be here with me learning about silent economy. I deeply hope I honored that choice of yours with content that truly adds real and transformative value to your life. See you in the next video. Until then, live with full intention, spend with absolute awareness, choose with wisdom, and always remember, money talks loud, wealth whispers softly, and silent economy transforms lives forever. Silent economy transforms lives.